Hello, my friend. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Back to Me podcast. And this is another week with another amazing human being. And today I'm talking to Cynthia McFarlane, Miss McMediator. It's so funny. I was afraid I was going to say that wrong. Welcome, Cynthia. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to have some explanation of Miss McMediator, and what that is.
I guess it's a play on my name, play on words in terms of my name. So I am a mediator, I'm a lawyer and a coach, legal coach. And the mediator part is there, and McFarlane is the beginning of that, Miss McMediator.
McMediator. And it's interesting, like you've got all of those pieces combined together of the coach and the lawyer and the mediator. Yes, it's okay. And how did you end up branching those three together?
Oh, well, I've been a barrister. That's a lawyer who wears a wig in the UK.
Okay.
I've been one for 18 years. And I then, after about 10 years, I decided I wanted to be a mediator internationally. So I continued doing that and the legal side of things. I'm sorry if the noise is a little bit hard here, but I'm hoping you can still hear me.
I can still hear you, yeah.
I've also been a legal coach more recently in years. So I combine the three things in order to deliver a holistic package to my clients.
Okay, and so you added the coaching on because you found that the mediation wasn't enough? How did that get layered on there?
It's interesting you said that it wasn't enough. I think we as women constantly think that we're not enough in terms of the way the media portrays us and society, and and maybe there's a lot of that going on behind the scenes, if I'm honest. So maybe I felt that a lawyer wasn't enough for me. Great. But so it started that really after about 10 years, I found as a barrister that people were going to court for things that weren't really the way they wanted to resolve things. And so I felt mediation kind of was the way forward for some of the clients I had. I won't go through the legal system over here in any great detail because it's probably going to be a minefield for some to listen to. But when I'd get instructed or representing people, we get referred by a solicitor over here, traditionally. And I'd get to court and find that the client didn't really want to be there. They thought the judge could give a lot of things that the judge didn't have the power to give. So I wanted to be more conciliatory. I wanted to look at amicable settlements. There were a lot of people who wanted to continue relationships, whether that was business, whether that was personal. They wanted apologies. They wanted a lot of different things that we don't always get, as you know, in courts.
Yeah.
And so rather than fighting at every point, I found that sometimes fighting wasn't the right action to take. Not always, but sometimes, and that mediation would be it. Then more recently with life and how life evolves, I was into personal development, and I found that I wasn't fulfilled enough, if I'm honest, after a number of years. And I wanted to do things differently. I got a little bored, Heather, in terms of the work I was doing.
I can't imagine any of that would have been boring, but...
And I like to change things up. So I decided then to do some personal development work on myself in terms of coaching. I had lots of different coaches to help me in various aspects of my work, not just reading about business, but also how to improve my life. And I found that the entrepreneurial way was what I wanted to invest in. but I also wanted to live a full life, and my passions, which are riding horses, also building a family. I'm in my 40s now. I'm 43 this year. And so I wanted to build a legacy myself for my family, I guess. And I had lots of mindset issues, as you may do, a lot of cultural issues, a lot of people telling you the way things should be done. And I took what I really wanted to do, going back to my childhood, I guess, if you think about what people tell you can't have,
Yes.
and said, I want to have it.
Right.
And so we are living now in a country home, a Victorian period property in the countryside, when I lived in London up to 2021. And during the pandemic, I decided I'm going to just live the life I want. I've been looking at this for years. Health issues also led to that before the pandemic, just shortly before. I'm cutting this down in a very
That's okay.
narrow view, but this is how it all relates. Everything's
It all
relative,
comes
isn't
together.
It? It is, yes. And I can own horses rather than loan them. I can build the legacy I want for my family, whether they're here right now or whether they are to be there in the future. And so, this is the purpose, and this is kind of the reason I got to build things for other people.
Right.
And that's why I have this legal program that I'd love to talk about with you and build on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can remember all those things when I was a kid, the things we couldn't do. And I had always wanted to learn to ride horses, and I never could.
Amazing.
So maybe I'll have to add that onto my grown-up list now.
You should. That's it. I mean, I was in my 20s as a barrister, and I thought, you know what, I'm not just doing it on the summer occasionally, I want to learn properly. I want to do dressage. I want to do the local competitions. And yes, it was late then, I guess, in my 20s to start doing it properly. But I thought, why not? So
It's never too late. Come on.
I don't think so. And that's it. I love this. I love what you're building here and what you're bringing into other people's lives with this podcast, because to me, a lot of the program I have is about people stepping away from their day-to-day business, the humdrum, the things that people expect them to do, and living their passions themselves, away
And
from their business.
looking out longer, right? So it's that idea of this is today, but
Yes.
it doesn't have to be like this every day,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, last week I spoke to in February I spoke to a financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that same kind of idea. The women have a different way they relate to money and think about money, and women don't always have that long view of, you're calling it legacy, and it's so true. I mean, you don't always think about that out that far. And it's so interesting about how you've incorporated that into a program. It's called what? Legacy?
Yes.
No, tell me again what it's called.
No, it's it. It's the Lawpreneur is another name that I've put together, I guess. Lawpreneur does exist for other people, I appreciate that, but it just seemed to fit. And it's a legacy transformation program. My dream clients are people who want to do more. They want to do more for themselves. They want to have self-care. They want to not necessarily build it for their family. It might be that they want to do that, but living the life now. They may want to ride horses like me. They may want to travel, leave a name for themselves, whatever that means to them, and not having not waiting for it, but just living their lives. And that's it. That's part of my framework. They have this vision. It might be a childhood vision as opposed to a business vision, and the two things come together. But they make sure that things are protected.
Right.
And lasting, knowing the legal ramifications of things in a fun way, I think.
So I was thinking about what you were commenting about, how when people get to court they didn't want to be there. I always thought court was, the last resort. rights,
Yeah,
and
it should
that
be.
and that mediation was always a better option. So I understand how you just went, this isn't the right place for this to happen. No matter what the legal system is, I think court is the last place people want to be.
Yeah, good.
And-
Taking the power away from you doing
Right?
that.
And
You
giving
wanna
it
be
to some
empowered.
person sitting up there who doesn't know anything about you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I like how you your comment combining the freedom to live your passions with legal empowerment. So what do you define as that legal empowerment aspect?
So I think you need to know areas that you don't know. I try to put this as a picture into three parts. So you've got a lot of it's mindset on the one hand, and that's the vision. That's what you want to do. I'm just putting it very basic
That's okay.
now. And then you have the mediation part, is empowering you in terms of the heart, if you like, to put it holistically. And it's the emotions, it's your values, the things that you want to protect, and the things that being the human in you. That's another part of the program. And then the third part is the empowerment part, and that is you being aware of what you need to be in terms of your legal dispute or potential dispute, the thing that can end your businesses or end your home, you having a home, or even your family breakdown, depending on what issue you have. So it's empowering you legally. It might be that I'm empowering you to, like say, fight like a warrior. It may not be fight as in we have to go to court,
Right.
but you're aware of what that legal part is. It may mean that you're fighting not to be in that position again because you have all the legal understanding in respect to your dispute, and you may need to negotiate, and that might be fighting to avoid getting in that situation again or getting in a worse position in terms of costs. So there's lots of different parts. There's 9 modules and
Wow.
3 modules in each part. And I meet the person where they are. It may mean that they want a part of that for where they are, or it may mean that we take 90 days working through. But I always like to start ideally with the mind part, which is the vision, and looking back at because you may build a business or have a family life, and it may be very different now to where you expected it to be, and your future may be very different as well. And so I think working those 3 things together, the body, the mind, and the heart, I think everything is holistic, and you can use this program in every area of your life and for later on once you learn it. So
Right.
I love it. So I'm very excited about this.
That's good. I mean, if you weren't excited about it, nobody else would be either, right?
That's so true. Yeah.
And it's interesting, it's true. I mean, you don't know what you don't know sometimes, and you can't always know everything. Like, I'm not going to say that
No.
you should know everything, because you would be paralyzed if you waited. But I can remember I knew a business owner whose partner had passed away suddenly, and there was nothing in the partnership agreement about how to handle it without really causing struggle for the surviving partner. So the surviving partner ended up really never making any money because he was constantly paying off the widow, because they hadn't really sorted out all the details of it before they just dove right in. And I think that's where even people, I've advised people of this, even if you're going to go into work with your very best friend in the whole world, who you've known your whole life, write it all down, how everything's going to work, and call in an expert, Miss
Absolutely.
McMediator, to help you.
Thank you.
Because
Yeah, no-
really, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how circumstances change from day to day over the years. And if you don't think in advance as much as you can, you do end up sometimes in that place you don't want to be. And I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's when you have to fight like a warrior. I mean, also just being an advocate for your own person, I think sometimes, right?
I agree with that. And I wish I hope a lot of people hear this, what you've just said about being best friends. The amount of times I've sat across in a mediation with two best friends, and I'm in communities and they say, oh, no, this would never happen. I would do it A, B, C, and D way. And then, yesterday I was, something happened here. And it's just, people change. It's like relationships. It's like loving relationships, families may not be as perfect as you like. You just never foresee everything. And I think it's getting your ducks in a row. There's nothing wrong in having an informed view of something. And even if you don't want to act upon it, at least you get those answers, those questions answered.
Yeah, and I heard somebody refer to it. We weren't talking about agreements. We were talking about financials, the ostrich syndrome with the head in the sand. If you don't look at it, it won't happen. I'm sorry, friends. It can happen to anyone. I mean, people who are so madly in love get divorced, and
Exactly.
People who have the perfect business idea and the perfect working partnership, sometimes things change and they don't. And having all of that stuff thought out, and then it just takes off that pressure of like, we agreed that this is how it was going to work in advance, so you don't have to fight about it at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and it saves a lot of hassle. And the other thing is, people think they've got lawyers. Do they have lawyers doing the right thing that they need?
Oh, right.
Because you could have people on retainer for a particular thing, but still have those other issues. And you also have people saying they've got protection for intellectual property, or they've got protection for wills. As you say, someone died, but there were still potential disputes, because why are we still in court? Why do we still have these things? It doesn't mean that everything goes away.
Yeah.
So it's just getting a full 360-degree understanding of what happens, so you can use that again if you need to, or just be aware of what things you need to be aware of and make the decision for yourself.
So for you, legal empowerment is partly knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Figuring out what you need, who you need in the background.
I think that's right. I think a lot of us, and including me, there's also, it's asking for help. But I know a lot now that I know probably less now. I feel like I know less now the older I am. But at least I know that I don't know something, and I know that I need someone to help me to deal with that part. Whereas I used to struggle on my own. Even think of bookkeeping.
Right.
For years I did it all on my own, thinking I had to know all this, or I would have to read a book to do A, B, C, and D. Now I know that, okay, they're over there, they're the experts in that area. I know I don't know it. And then you work out how you work with that person, whether that's in a group setting or a one-to-one setting, or might be reading a book. But where you can have the help and go right to the source, I think these days it's better for me. I've got too many other things I want to do. I would rather ride my horse, than have to get down and dirty with those other things, you see.
Well, it is true. I mean, I've always been a big fan of work in your zone of genius. So do the things that you're really good at, and the things you're not good at or you don't want to do, get somebody else to do them.
Yeah.
Because in whatever way you can. I know a coach she's a money mindset coach, and she works very hard. She loves what she does, but she has someone who does all the cooking, because she's like, I don't have time. I don't like cooking, so she just has a housekeeper come, someone who prepares the meals. And she said that just frees up so much of her brain space. And I mean, that's kind of a funny example, but bookkeeping is a really good example. How many people struggle with their bookkeeping, and you could outsource it.
And save money. I can tell you now, I know I've lost money from not doing that early enough.
Oh, really?
And it might be a little bit of money. It may not be that much, but I know that if I had someone that's their zone of excellence or genius, I could have probably saved a little bit. And that's the same. I'm the same as the person you mentioned about cooking, and preparing a home. I don't worry about those things now, whereas I used to. I spent a lot of time. I got to. I think I was too long getting to this place. Could have saved myself so much time.
You get there when you get there. I mean, we're always in a hurry, but I think that when we're ready for it, then we do it. And sometimes the sad thing is we are ready for it and we don't take that leap into it. And I guess that's where you bring in your money mindset aspect of your transformation program, or maybe it's not money mindset, just the mindset aspect.
It is mindset. I think there's so many things, layers, isn't there, under that. I think that's something I'm always still working on, because I think though you get to a certain point and you've done a lot of work, there's always another hill to climb, or you need to refresh and review things as well. But yes, mindset's really important, definitely.
I think I think that part of the way we work, maybe it's a human thing, maybe it's a society thing, is we always think we could tick that off. Okay, I fixed that. Tick. Not realizing that you're never actually done.
Yes, I wish we were, but you're right. Yes.
There's always things to do. There's another, I listened to so many podcasts, it would make people bonkers. But there was someone who said once, she had conquered this mindset issue that she had. She said, it's done, yes, check. And then she hit another plateau and she said, damn, it's come back just in a new form. So it's like, so she had taken care of, kind of peeled off a layer of it, got to another level of personal development, and then she was blocked again because she needed to peel off another layer. So it's like, I think that constant and continual examination and being aware and asking the questions, and I think a big part of it is being open to something, right?
Yes, and I think you mentioned earlier about being in the right place at that time, or that's the place you're in. I think negativity and judgment, or may not even be judgment that presents itself with people in front of you now, but you may have these stories in your previous history that tells you not to do these things. I mean, I remember even getting a cleaner. It took me years because I thought I couldn't justify that. Right. And then now I really need the help.
Right.
But I always have the cultural little stuff, or your grandparents. I'm thinking, oh, well, they might think that, or not that they're around anymore. But you have these people talking to you, who from your past, who have just did they do that? Would they have done that? It's difficult to move forward sometimes. But I think you have to get to the point where you're like, well, no, I need to move forward, and that's actually beneficial to the rest of my family or my legacy, and see how we're traveling and moving on positively.
Well, it's true. The stories that you hear when you're young, or the impressions that you get when you're young, you think it's the truth because you don't know any different, that it's not. I mean, I still kind of believe in Santa Claus, but but you never would have questioned whether there was a man who could come down the chimney and deliver presents under the tree if Santa Claus was your jam. And we question that one, but we don't question later on I'm supposed to be the person who does all the cooking and cleaning. Oh, I am supposed to be able to do all this myself. I'm supposed to be able to take care of the family and the house and have a job and be a Superwoman, energetic, never tired or cranky, and always looking fabulous.
Yes. Oh, you just reminded me, actually. I remember growing up that I always said to my mother, I was the eldest of two, and when cleaning came, the chores when we were very young, we had to, again, I think it's probably a cultural thing, but we had to do it early on. And my mother was working, single parent, working outside, and I remember saying, isn't there someone who does this? Realising it's actually me. But now it's funny how my mind is. You grow up and you think, okay, no, we have to do everything. And I got to the point of thinking, I have to be Superwoman, and trying to embrace all of this stuff. And then I'm thinking now, that was absolutely ridiculous. Why did I spend time as I was older, trying to be everything and everyone? I think it's the 80s. I think it may have been the 80s that did that to us, the media.
I think so. I think it was the 80s. Although the 80s is a great decade for dancing, but
that's it. That was the whole thing.
I'm about 10 years older than you, so.
Right. Okay. Well, it's funny how you can appreciate things after the fact. I saw that, but I realised. I was saying the other day, I think it may have come from the films I used to watch in the 80s, telling me that women need to do all this and.
Oh yeah. Right. Films, parents, grandparents,
yes,
everything that the commercials, like if you look at really old adverts from the 50s, it'll make your skin crawl what was portrayed. But even though we say that we're past that, I remember when I got a cleaning lady, I felt like I had to justify it.
That was so hard for me.
Right? It's like, people are going to think that I can't keep my house. I'm like, well, it's a giant house. I'm not cleaning it. Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I remember, it doesn't feel like that long ago for me, really, if I'm honest, but it's either trying to tidy up before they get here or apologising to them for the situation. And it wasn't that bad, probably, but I think it's also, again, that goes back to judgment, doesn't it, really? You're paying someone to do a service for you.
Yeah.
And actually they are probably in their zone of genius. I mean, the one I have definitely is.
Right.
And, yes.
And sorry. Even though people don't believe it, I know people who love cleaning. So if people love cleaning, oh my gosh, let them have at it.
I'm finding it easier the more I do it, but yes, the more I allow her to do
excellent.
Things.
So when you're taking people through your program, do you find the mindset is where people struggle the most? Or what do you find is something you see common?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think mindset is very important. I'm just thinking of one particular client of mine at the moment. It does go back again. There's a lot of judgment, mindset, negative thing. She's an ideal client in that she does everything you choose her to do in the legal side, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But no, I think it is constant mindset. It is growth. The growth part is hard. Seizing power is a module that we have in it. And I think that can be very difficult, particularly when your environment is very different to where you see yourself, and your associations. If you don't have a community, and if what's being asked of you is very different to the world you're presented with in that moment. I appreciate that I've gone through a lot of, and I'm sure I will still continue to do a lot of personal development myself, but I think that it's like an elastic band, really, isn't it? You start pulling it a little bit, and then it's slightly easier the next time you do it. But if it's completely foreign to you, and the one client I'm thinking about, I know I've worked with her in a traditional sense before, but she was so open to doing this with me because she she understands, she appreciates it and sees where she can go. But I just think it is constant work. It is going back to the mindset and kind of like revising things.
Right.
Rehearsing.
Editing.
I think that's what it is. Yes, editing.
And it's true that when you're trying to change something, it takes work because you have old habits. So if you're trying to change something, you can't always just say, okay, now I'm going to do it like this, and you're good, you're done. So I like the fact that there is And this is why I'm a coach. As people are trying to change their habits, to help them, I'm sure that you do the same, helping them stay on track. And when they fall down, don't let them stay down. It's okay. We can do this.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's accountability, challenging them is really
Right.
important. Yeah, I think so.
Oh my goodness, sorry, I had to cough for a second there.
No, go ahead.
So, yes, it's, and I find everything in life is, you have to start with, and it's such a big buzzword these days, but I'm going to use it anyway. Everything in life starts with mindset, right? It's because if you believe it's going to if you believe this will happen, then it probably will. If you believe you're good, then you'll be good. If you believe you're bad, then you'll be bad. If you believe you will succeed, you will succeed. So I think that just that mindset aspect of it, it's never perfect, as you said. You just keep working on it. But at least when I talk about people making decisions to do things, the first thing you need to be is aware that of what's going on. And like you were talking earlier, that story in your head. Right? Yeah. I know I see you struggling with your computer there. It's all good. This is real. This is the real life podcast where not everything works perfectly, which is super. So where can people find your legacy transformation program?
Okay, so thank you for asking. It's Miss Mediator, so www.missmcmediator.com/lawpreneur, and that's where my newer services are, less traditional legal services.
Right.
I'm also the horse lawyer as well, so I also
awesome.
use that for those as well. So yeah, so there's also a website there which directs you to the same place.
What does the horse lawyer do?
Oh, it could be a lot of variety. Today I had a matter which was in court yesterday, and that was to do with a sale of a horse, but it could be anti-doping issues, it could be a variety of a host of things, competition issues. But a lot of the equestrians I find internationally are also very cliquey, and that means that they don't seek legal advice when they need to. And they could be 50 years, as a lady is who I'm working with at the moment, 50 years of equestrian experience, an expert in their field. I had a police officer another day, and they didn't unfortunately, this is a recurrent theme, I could be using anyone's name here.
Yeah.
They trust too much, and unfortunately things are not as nice and bright as we would like to think, and so the disputes arise.
Oh, that's too bad. But I think that's an awesome niche you've got there, the horse lawyer. And
Thank you.
Friends, if you didn't catch the website, don't worry. We're going to put it in the show notes for you, right?
Thank you very
We'll
much.
totally take care of that so they can find you. And yes, don't put your head in the sand about your law, about your legal empowerment. And before you go, because we're going to put all that in the show notes, but before you leave, I am super interested in a final word of wisdom from you, or two.
Thank you. One thing I would like communities to know is that courts aren't the only option, that you have options. Get the informed areas. You get informed, basically. Look at all your options, and then just decide whether you want to take action or not.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. Know all your options before you have to dive into court, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, so true. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for joining me. Thank you for sharing your awesome knowledge with us, and your program sounds fabulous. So anyone who's not sure about those things, definitely go check that out. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And friends in podcast land, you take care of yourselves, take care of your personal power, and I will see you next